Shouldn't the report just speak for itself instead of having to be explained?
So you would think so, but it can't. And the reason it can't is because Congress is saying there don't need to be redactions in this. We need to see, and the American public needs to see the full report unredacted. And they can't see it for a couple reasons. I know we got to be quick here, but grand jury testimony by law cannot simply be released. You have to protect people who are investigated by a grand jury who were never charged with anything. And don't trust politicians when they say, we want to see it, no one else will see it. Look at all the leaks that have come out in this Mueller investigation so far. There is no doubt in my mind that if that grand jury testimony is not redacted, it will be leaked to the media, who will report on all these people who were never charged with anything but were looked at, and that's a huge problem.
To bring in investigative journalist Ben Swann, because we need an investigator.
That's right.
To break this all down, because we can't actually trust what we're hearing. Ben, what do you make of Attorney General Barr saying he will release the Mueller report to Congress and that the public within the week, and he's just now saying that today?
Right, so he's giving this timeline today, but remember when the summary that he put out, some people don't like the fact that it's called a summary, but the summary that he put out a few weeks ago detailing what he said was essentially in the Mueller report, and more importantly, what was not in the Mueller report, no collusion, he said, with Russia. At that time, Congress immediately jumped up and down and said, we want to see the whole thing for ourselves. We don't trust what you're saying. Show it to us. And his response at that time was, within a few weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, Congress would be able to see something. Now he's saying he's going to go ahead and release this redacted version within a week or so. So it kind of fits the timeline he had already talked about in terms of releasing this redacted version. But it's not the redacted version that politicians want to see. They want to see the entire unedited, unredacted report, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, does the American public really even know how to unpack a report of this magnitude? Obviously, there's hundreds and hundreds of pages of it. Can we actually understand what it's all about and who's all connected to it?
So I think people are smart enough to understand it. The problem is, does the public understand what the Mueller report was supposed to find? Because remember, originally this whole thing was based upon the idea that Donald Trump was working as a puppet of Vladimir Putin and was himself a Russian asset. He colluded with the Russian government to steal the 2016 election. Anything beyond that is not really in the scope of what this investigation was originally supposed to include, but special prosecutors can go far outside of those limits. We know that. And we know that every single guilty plea that's been made so far, every single charge that's been brought against an American so far, or anyone associated with the Trump campaign, has been unrelated to what I just laid out, those very specific guidelines. So I think the public as a whole has a difficult time understanding thousands of pages in a report or hundreds of pages in a report that might not make a whole lot of sense because it's so broad in terms of everything Mueller and his investigators looked into. And remember, everything they looked into was not necessarily found to be in existence or realistic just because it was investigated.
So does it almost seem like the Mueller report could be potentially full of basically a bunch of rumors and hearsay without any evidence to back it up? And how do you think we've seen the public, how do you think those opposition to President Trump is going to run with just the rumors, even though there's no evidence there? Are they going, we've run a whole campaign on anonymous sources. Yeah. Is this going to open up a whole new realm of drama that basically most Americans, it seems like, really don't care about?
Well, I think it's definitely going to open up a whole new round of drama. There's no question about that, because remember that already, even as that initial kind of summary came out saying there's no collusion here, immediately Democrats in Congress shifted gears to say, well, there's a lot of other things that need to be looked into as well. And already just in the last week, they've talked about Trump's taxes and the IRS. So they kind of shifted gears a little bit to pretend as if this investigation is also about and should also be about Trump's financial dealings and whether or not he's been honest in his financial dealings. And that, of course, is problematic because it does not go back to the core of this investigation as a whole, which again was about Russian collusion.